Hi friends, welcome to another sewing video. I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm going to make a really pretty apron. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, in part because the aprons that I've made so far I've made a little shorter. I mean, they're probably long enough for most people. They go to about my knee, but I wear a lot of really long skirts and dresses, and so recently I've been finding with certain chores or even with cooking sometimes, I just kind of want more coverage for my apron. So I'm going to make this long and I'm going to put a little ruffle on the end, and I have some really cute trim that I'm going to put here and there, and I think it'll just be really pretty and sweet because I wear aprons pretty much every day, and it would just be nice to have one that's really pretty, you know? I mean, my other ones are fine and they're cute, but I want to take it to the next level of pretty and maybe a little bit extra. So thanks for being here. I hope you'll enjoy hanging out with me while I do this sewing. Hopefully I can explain things clearly in case you want to do this too. And yeah, my boys are napping. I just ate a giant piece of lemon pound cake, so we're ready to go. Let's do this. All right, I've cut out all my pieces. I didn't film cutting these out because I figured that might be kind of boring, but I will walk you through each piece, what it's for, how long it is, all that good stuff. So this is just coming straight from my good old brain. I am not using a pattern for this. Aprons are really simple, so I felt like I could just kind of wing it with this and hopefully it'll turn out cute. So these are going to be our straps. There's two of these pieces, and these are 20 inches long. So these will be our straps. This big long piece is the waistband / tie closure, and it is 56 inches, I believe. And then this big rectangle, there's actually two of these because I want there to be two layers just because this fabric is kind of thin and I want this apron to have some, some structure to it. I don't want it to be too thin. So we're going to do two of these big rectangles, and this is 40 inches by 22 inches. And then, is that right, 22? Let me measure that again real quick. Yep, that's right, 40 by 22. And then this is our bib piece. So this one is 10 inches by 12 inches, and that'll get sewn right sides together and flipped right side out, all that good stuff to hide the raw edges, which you will see me do that for all of this, finishing my edges and flipping these things right side out, all of that in a little bit. And lastly, this is going to be our ruffle. So this is just a big, long piece that is 60 inches, I believe, 60 inches long by, I didn't measure this part, let's see, 7 inches-ish. And that measurement, really most of these measurements are based on the amount of fabric that I had. So I probably, if I had had more fabric, would have made this a little bit longer, but we're just going to work with the 60 inches that we have. So now I'm going to get to work on sewing everything together, and I'm sure you will hear me in the voiceover in just a second explaining everything that I'm doing as I'm doing it. Voiceover time, let's do this. I'm doing this in my basement, which means I have to fight with the basement noises, so I apologize if this ends up being a little bit choppy. I will do the best I can with what I have. So here I am sewing down the waistband. It looks like just sewing down the length of that, and I should have said this in the measurements portion, but I totally forgot. The waistband and the straps, I gave you the length, but I didn't tell you how wide they were. So I believe these were about 4 inches wide, and I just folded those over right sides together so that I can then sew them down along the length, and I will flip them right side out just like I'm doing right there. I just use a safety pin to do that. And that way everything, all the raw edges are inside that little tube, and you can iron it down and it's nice and neat, and you won't have any issues with fraying and that sort of thing. Now I'm sewing the two panels, I guess, of the ruffle together. So just like with the main portion of the apron, I did 2 layers for the ruffle as well. It would have looked really weird if it was 1 layer, would have been way too thin. So that's what I'm doing here, and same thing, I'm just sewing along the edges on 3 of the 4 sides so I can then flip it right side out and it'll be nice and neat. You'll see that when I iron it in a bit. And then here I'm sewing down the 2 sides of the bib front, leaving the bottom open so that I can flip that right side out as well. I'm sure there are other ways to do this. If you're doing 2 layers of something, this is just how I do it. It's easy, it's fast. I don't have any issues with it. So there you go. That's just how I do it. And I think you'll probably notice on some of the edges of this fabric, like you might notice that they look kind of choppy and messy. And the fabric I was working with was, as always, thrift store fabric. So it was not perfect, and there were quite a few pieces that were fraying really badly on one side of the fabric, one end, I guess. So I had to go through and kind of trim certain spots, but it was fine. I was able to just keep my line straight when I was sewing, and everything turned out nice and neat and straight. So it was totally fine. I'm sorry if that bothers you to see some of my edges looking a little rough. I just was working with what I had, which you'll hear me say a million times in this video. So then I just went and ironed down all those pieces so they're really crisp and neat and easy to work with. And here I'm closing up all of the ends. So you had seen previously how I was turning everything right side out, and that left one end, or on the straps it leaves both ends open. So I'm just kind of using my fingers to flip the fabric inward a little bit to close it, and then I just sew it down. So those ends will also be finished nicely. And even on this big rectangle for the main part of the apron as well, I'm going to have to do that in a second, which you'll see I'll have to use a couple pins for that to kind of hold that in place. And those are the straps. So we've got our bib front, our straps, our waistband, the ruffle, and then the main portion of the apron that are almost ready to be all sewn together. Although, that being said, I am going to have to gather the apron portion and the ruffle portion in just a moment, which I think you see me try to do here. And we'll see what happens. You'll see. It's very fun. This is a nice little surprise. Just trying to gather it and snap. It just snapped, which I feel like 95% of the time when I go to gather something using my machine, the thread ends up snapping. No matter how gentle I am, no matter how careful I am, it just snaps. So I ended up going and doing this by hand. I just did a really wide stitch all the way down along the length of it, gathering as I went. And then in a minute, you'll see me kind of adjust it to fit the length that I need it to fit. And then I did the same thing for the apron portion, just gathering along the top, right where the waistband is going to sit, and doing that by hand because my darn thread just will not hold up. I don't know. Do you guys have this problem? When you gather things with your machine, it just snaps most of the time. Really, I should just kind of make it my default to just do it by hand, because I feel like I have to end up doing that anyway. Might as well save myself some time. If you do want to use your machine to gather, I've said this before, but if you're unfamiliar with gathering, you can set your machine to the longest and widest stitch, backstitch at the very start, and then do not backstitch when you get to the end so that you can pull on those threads and gather the material together. I would say just do it by hand though, okay? It's not worth the frustration of getting halfway through and then having it snap. Anyway, here I'm just getting everything connected with pins so I can then go in and sew everything together. I'm so sorry that I have to keep stopping and starting with these stupid basement noises. It's just what we're working with today. You would think we were living in bloomin' Kansas, because it is so windy outside today that I cannot record this upstairs. It's just the wind is too loud. So it's either the wind or it's a noisy basement that makes me pause once in a while. So I apologize for that. Moving on. You can see I totally messed up on the ruffle at first. I just pinned it together completely wrong at first. I don't know what I was doing. Wasn't paying close enough attention, I guess. So now I've figured it out. I'm just putting the ruffle right sides together with the bottom of the apron. And then I'll sew that down and it'll flip out nicely and look really neat. And you can see, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I just took those gathered portions on the ruffle and matched them up with the width of the bottom of the apron, and then tied them off so that they would stay put there. And I did the same thing with the waist that was gathered. I just gathered that to the point where it was wide enough for what I wanted for my waist, and then tied that off and attached that to the waistband, or I'm about to attach it to the waistband here. There you go, sewing that down. You could always do the waistband right sides together and flip it out, or you could do that, sandwich it. You could do it a bunch of different ways. I just kind of plopped it right on top and sewed it down, and I thought that looked perfectly fine. Now I'm just going ahead and adding the trim. Is this an eyelet lace? Can someone tell me? I feel like that is what this is called, but I'm not 100% sure. So I've just been calling it trim just to be safe because I don't know. And then in a minute here, or maybe I already did it. Did I miss it? Attaching the straps and the bib front. Yeah, it looks like I missed it. So that's okay. I also put some trim on the top here. So yeah, attaching the straps and the bib front are pretty self-explanatory. Not too complicated there. Hopefully you're able to see what I was doing. And there it is. There's the apron. So simple, and I think it turned out really pretty and flowy and feminine, and I feel really pretty wearing it. And I will talk to you more about it in just a moment. All right, it is complete. I love it. I think it turned out so cute. I'll just kind of talk you through some of the things that I wish I had done differently. Just in case you want to make this, maybe you can make those adjustments. So something I'm going to adjust that I just didn't really realize until I put it on for the reveal is this is just too high. I should have made this bib piece a little bit shorter, which I should have trusted my gut, because when I was drafting it, I was like, I think I'm going to want it to be 10 inches, not 12, but whatever. I should have done 10. So if you're going to do this bib, I would do 10 by 10 instead of 10 by 12. So that thankfully is something that's easy to fix. So I'm going to go in later and just shorten the bib a little bit. So that's one thing. And then, I mean, I really love it. I don't want to hate on it. I do wish it was even longer. That was something I was hoping for, was that it would be even longer than this. It is longer than my other aprons. So that's great. That's a win. But with the amount of fabric that I had to work with, this was kind of as long as I could make it. So that's okay. You know, we're working with what we have. I also can't really decide if I love this or not. I think once this is lower, I'll like it a lot more. So that's part of why I'm going to be lowering this. But I don't know. Does this just look really weird? I don't know. I saw an apron from the 50s actually, that had trim like this up at the top, and I really like it on that one. So we'll see. Maybe once I shorten the bib, I'll like it better. I hope this wasn't too boring of a project. I kind of needed something a little bit easier this week because I have a bunch of projects coming up. I'm actually putting out 2 videos next week because I have 2 projects that I'm really excited about, and I just can't help myself. I need to share it. So I'm going to be doing a pinafore video because I found a really, really gorgeous bed sheet at the thrift store. It's so pretty, and it needs to be a pinafore, and I'm really excited to make it. So I'm going to share that with you next week. And then I'm also going to share with you making another 1950s dress. If you've seen that video, I am going to make another one, and I'm really excited about it. So I hope you'll come back and see those videos. And then obviously there's lots of other fun stuff planned going forward, and I'm trying to kind of get ahead on things a little bit because we're going into the holidays and busy times. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you'll go and make yourself a beautiful frilly apron. I am just in love with it, and it feels just so pretty to wear it. So thank you all for being here, and we will be back very, very soon with more sewing videos. And you can check out our other videos too if you're into day in the life or that kind of thing. We do all sorts of stuff on this channel. So thank you guys for being here. We'll see you later. Bye. What do you think of it, Betty?